Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the king of podcasts.
So Beyonce just has one of those kinds of careers where she can basically just go ahead and go into different genres. And I really feel like she thinks she's entitled to go ahead and just cross genres whenever she wants. Now, that might have been something you could have done, years ago. Like, well, obviously, there's artists that started from country and then moved into other areas. We've seen that all the time. But it would just be that full change. What we're seeing right now with Beyonce is she wants to go ahead and create music, in a more creative set. And she just wants to go ahead and, she uses it as a platform to, I guess, exemplify and to amplify black music. Is that pretty much what we're always talking about? I mean, the fact that we hear the Renaissance album, and everything that came from that. Listen, I like the Renaissance album. I thought, when I look at, You Won't Break My Soul, when you give me Cuff It, when you give me, there were a number of songs that I liked on there, and I thought she hit pretty good on those songs. And I thought, well, what she did in bringing some of the music together, and also what she did to go and give credit to the artists that she might have interpolated from or been given inspiration from. I still think about Break My Soul. It was one thing where she wanted to make sure that Robin S. was given credit in the song because she did interpolate Show Me Love. It was one of those things where okay, Beyonce doing that, bringing certain voices into the mix and, amplifying them into her music. She's the singer as she brings other artists into it. The bounce mix that came into it with that, but it was dance music. And Drake did the same thing, right? And I was like, I like that. Great. But dance music, you can have people that can come into the space and, they've always been welcome. I mean, you look right now, Elton John's been brought into that mix most recently. And then there's certain artists that will go from pop to go into dance. And they can always get just delve into it if they want to. Rolling Stones just had a song with, who was it? Purple Disco Machine, where they had their song remixed. And I forget what song it was. But that's normal. It's okay. That's allowed. In country music, it's different. Because country music is coddled. Country Music Row, they're only going to allow certain artists to go ahead and be a part. And it's a pressure campaign right now by her fans, Beyonce fans, and by, I guess, the record label and whoever else, the powers that be coming from her, that they must insist that Music Row must play their music. Now, for some people, you're going to say it a couple different ways. Sure. This is a thing where good on Beyonce to push country radio to go ahead and, bend the boundaries and stop putting boundaries into certain artists that can come in, because there's been a thought process that supposedly, there are certain artists or that maybe black representation is not as much as it should be in country music. I mean, you could make that argument, I guess, but Darius Rucker is doing a damn good job in his career over there. By the way, an artist that went from folk rock or basically just rock into country, right? I mean, just saying you could have that, right? And it's like, what do you want? I mean, if you want someone else, let's go with Jimmy Allen. Another great example. I mean, the thing is just that certain music always just fits certain areas. And listen, we can go and talk about the fact that, okay, yeah, Beyonce is originally a Houston native. I never knew she had any kind of real interest in the country music in the first place. Never really knew. It wasn't like I'm trying to look out for it. Listen, I've listened to her music for years, right? I still remember. It's amazing. 1998. And I'm over at WOWL, the FAU campus radio station, Florida Atlantic University. And I remember having a few people over, and we were going crazy over the Destiny's Child first album. And of course, first song was No, 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 right? And that was a remix with Wyclef Jean, 98, 97, 98. And I remember we kept looking at the four women on the cover, and everybody pointed Beyonce. That was the star. Everybody looked, didn't know that was the one that was the lead singer, but yes, Beyonce. Everybody looked Beyonce, Beyonce, Beyonce. Didn't know how to say her name, but they saw her. And they just kept looking, kept staring. And all these guys were like, they're all talking like, it was a station we were playing rap music, okay? Come on. And it's like, she's about it, banging. Like, well, this kind of stuff we're talking about her, right? Yeah, she's a beautiful girl. Talented singer. An amazing catalog of music if you want to go and pick. Personally, she is just like a lot of other legendary artists. Sometimes the music doesn't hit with me anymore because it's not the same. It's not bouncy. It's not fun. It's like, it's just changed. And I think it's Jay-Z that probably changed it, right? I was like, okay, some of her music doesn't really resonate for me because obviously she's more into concept albums. She's more into, moving along in her career. But not Madonna, paved the way for that. And there are others that can do the same thing. Oh, okay, listen. Lady Gaga working with Tony Bennett. Yeah. It's something about, and I don't judge the fact that Beyonce working her way to go and work a country album and try to make music grow, gotta go ahead and like bend the knee to her to go ahead and play her music. From what I've heard so far, okay, 2 singles were pushed out. 16 Carriages and Texas Hold'em. Texas Hold'em, much more the beat to it. The song's fine. I got no problem with it. It's definitely going to stand out on country radio because it's going to be her. Now, one of the things too is that I'm going to put it to you like this. I don't have a problem with country stations at all if they want to go and go that route and play music that is, from Beyonce at all. Not whatsoever. I mean, I want stations to have the freedom to go and say, you know what? If it's going to bring an audience, yeah, why not? But think about it from a business standpoint. I mean, how many people are going to be going out of their way to go listen to Beyonce on a country radio station? I mean, you got to wait for that buzz to start happening for country radio to go and pick up. Are people in country music looking for her to go and come out and put out a country album? We had things where like certain music just never really gelled. I mean, remember when people used to complain about disco music? When everybody came in and started doing disco records? When Kiss and Rod Stewart and, Ethel Merman came in and, oh my goodness. It was like, Rolling Stones came in and you started seeing all these artists come in. It's like, oh, let's start doing disco records. It's like, you could make the reason, you could make the justification for it. But it's one of those things where I think for Beyonce, this is just an in and out. She wants to come in, do this concept album, go with this inspiration, play it. It's well produced. She sings great on it. Don't get me wrong. But it is going to be different for her to go ahead and get this out there for Music Row because these, there's just a certain line that goes by. It's a bit sanctimonious. I will say that. Country music does move a little bit better when it comes to playing new artists and getting forward. I mean, not so much. Because Zach Bryan doesn't get too much. You want to play Morgan Wallen? Oh, they'll play him to the heart's content. Luke Combs, to the heart's content. How about Chris Stapleton? Maybe not so much. And it's a shame. I'm curious if SiriusXM's, if the SiriusXM country channels have already picked up on it yet or not. That's a good question. I haven't seen anything read about it, but we're going to find out about that coming up into the news when we're going to start talking about it. Because that's one of those areas that I'm looking at myself and I was like, wow, that's a good question. Is it going on like that? But sometimes there are certain artists that are polarizing that are going to cause a stir. One thing that never caused a stir, but this was going on when I was working with my friend over at the cluster stations that were a gospel station, a Spanish contemporary station, tropical music or with fuel. It was like / tropical / reggaetons, And then it was all talk for, the Haitian diaspora, from Palm Beach County in Florida to the Haitian, to the nation of Haiti, the connection between those areas to let the people that left and the diaspora that's been left behind to get the news and information of what's going on over there. Did you know that Nicki Minaj at that time, it was 2019, she put out gospel music? Did you know that? Did you know about the fact that she put out gospel music? It was the same thing with when Kanye West at the same time also did that. Remember that? So Nicki Minaj did a song called Blessings and it was featuring a very prominent gospel artist, Tasha Cobbs Leonard. And I'll tell you what happened was the song hit number 1 of the gospel songs chart, and a lot of talk was about it. And I'll tell you what, people were pretty much, the Southern gospel stations, they were not necessarily up about it. People were like, oh boy. Well, that was actually 2023, right? Relevant was a new album, and Tasha Cobbs Leonard appeared on the album. But previously, it was the other way around, where Blessings was on before. Well, actually, there was Blessings over there. So Nicki Minaj has actually been doing that over here, but it's been since 2019. It goes back to that. And at the same time, it was right around the same time where the gospel album of Kanye West came out, right? Same thing. And I'll tell you, it didn't get a whole lot of talk about it, which was really interesting why it wasn't. But I don't think people were necessarily too happy, because let me tell you, that gospel station, they would play pretty current music. And I asked the program director, yeah, he wouldn't play it. And maybe it wasn't so much to him that he wouldn't play it, but it's because there was the autonomy of the other DJs there at the station. They wouldn't play it. I remember when I asked the lady that works on the weekends and the mornings, no, they would not play Nicki Minaj in a record with it, or the Kanye West music. No. Even if there was audience participation that was saying, please play the song. No, they would not do it. But I also would, defend the right for the fact that stations did not want to do it because it was against their faith, right? I mean, they feel like, well, look at the kind of portrayal that she brings out here. And she brings the country music. And in some ways, I think country music might get that same kind of feeling themselves, a little bit sanctimonious, a little bit high and mighty. You think about the legacy of Comes Before, that's part of what it is. And all of a sudden, now Beyonce comes out, she's wearing cowboy gear, she's wearing a hat, and it's a change, publicity. And the big Super Bowl commercial that came out with it to promote the fact that she was putting out this album. Okay. But I think some people are going to just look at that and they're going to say to themselves, man, they're not going to be happy to see that. Country radio not playing it right away, I'm not surprised. But the problem is that it is something where, well, it's the same where we see some songs that come through and there's a crossover that can definitely happen, but it's got to be organic. What we're seeing right now is the campaign from her fans of her music all around that they must play it on country radio. When most likely in a couple of weeks, of course, the album, they want to get out there to get as many people to, buy it as possible. Okay. Which you could probably get. And because it's a country album, you got to rely on country radio to go and get it, because country radio still matters. Country radio is still significantly important because iTunes does have a certain push when it comes to country. Spotify, not so much, but people kind of really care. And you kind of look at that. Like iTunes is very much where country music kind of thrives. Spotify, that's where the Latin music thrives. It's kind of like that. But I think it's something where when they look at what this could do to country music, if other artists would like to find their way. You remember I played an interview and I played back the comments from Dave Pratt. He's the former morning mayor at Arizona Radio. Remember, he was playing in Phoenix, Arizona, and then he worked his way through, and he talked about the fact of how, country was a new rock. Remember we talked about that? And he's not wrong about that. When you look at what he did and went through to get where he was, there's one of the things where he wasn't wrong about that. It was one of those things where Dave Pratt talked about, when rock music was kind of changing, all the artists started going the music row, changed it. KUPD, that's where he was at. And then he decided to go country and, he saw the change. Went and worked on a country station, changed for him just as a radio disc jockey. But he went over there and he saw the difference. And we've seen certain artists that always cross over in some way, shape, or form. Fine. Listen, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I remember when Madonna's music played on 99 Jams here in Miami. What? And that was a station I was like, I didn't necessarily think they would go that route, but yeah. They played Madonna's music, and then I also remember they started playing Justin Timberlake. They played, Sexy Back. They played I Want to Love You, and I was like, whoa. And they played Britney Spears' I'm a Slave for You. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. But the song sounded good, and they fit in, kind of gelled with the rest of the lineup. And I don't think anybody had much of an issue with it. But then again, we've had crossover where we had just certain artists and certain music that just kind of resonates. See, it's one of those things where organic crossover, when I talked about that here, it's got to be organic. It's got to be something that's going to be brought up where a new audience picks it up. Not the fandom, trying to push it on everybody else. It doesn't work. And this might be something that's going on right now, but of course the pushback is like, oh, Beyonce is like, Queen. How are you going to let Queen Bee not get her songs played on the country radio? What I don't know so far is if her songs are even being played right now on urban radio. We don't call it black radio, it's urban radio. Frankie Crocker created the urban contemporary label. I will stick with that. Okay. The guy was a legend. He was great. So the thing is, urban radio, are they going to play her music? I wouldn't see why not. Listen, it's Beyonce. Why not play it there? So I can see 16 carriages. Not on the 16 carriages. Texas Hold'em, I can see it being played there. Why not? Go for it. I don't know what the whole feedback has been so far from the urban radio station so far. I'd like to see what they're going to do about it, and if really they need to talk about it. But the focus right now, the hyper focus is on country radio and certain stations that will be playing the music and what they would go and play. And that's what everybody's really caught up on and trying to understand. So, I mean, let's see what they decide to go with it. And where things go and where they decide, okay, are we going to really care? And is it going to get a whole lot of, flack for not doing so? Right now, it's opening up doors. The thing is, it's getting international press. BBC and Guardian already have stories about it. Let's go and talk about those first. So the one station that we're all going after right away was station KYKC. That was the first one that came out because the program director there came off and brought about it. KYKC is in Bing, Oklahoma. I need to even see the size of the station to see if this is really something that really matters. Because I couldn't even tell you what the station is. I don't even know where Bing, Oklahoma is. But let's see just for, just to find out. Okay, it is a 50,000 watt station. The owner of the station is the Chickasaw Nation. It is Indian owned. Okay. The coverage map, as I look at this right now, this station, okay, I'm going to radio-locator.com if you want to go and find out this for yourself. Okay. This station, it is, again, it looks like the main market is Ada, Oklahoma. Bing, Oklahoma is the city of license. The station is on the fringe of Norman, Oklahoma, home of the University of Oklahoma, right? And Oklahoma City. It's on the fringe. Okay, so the signal is about 50 miles northwest, southeast of Oklahoma City. This is not even that close to the city itself. There are other stations in Oklahoma City, I'm sure, that cover much more ground. Listen, if I want to go and pick up stations that are picking up more ground anywhere else, in Oklahoma City, let's see here. KJKE is in Newcastle, Oklahoma. Then you have, let's see, KWFF. Let's see here. KTST is in Oklahoma City. What do we got? KBLP is in Lindsay, Oklahoma. Yeah, you got 5 other country stations around in the market that could be covering this. Okay? I don't know. Interesting. But this particular station, after a Beyonce fan on Tuesday contacted the radio station to request her song Texas Hold'em. The station responded. General Manager Roger Harris says, quote, "We did not play Beyonce and KYKC as we are a country music station." Now, one of the things is, and maybe Roger Harris didn't know, is that he might not have been paying attention to the fact that these songs were pushed. And by the way, to the fan of Beyonce that probably got upset that the song company played, let's just put it like this. Songs, in some cases, country radio is very specific. All those labels, they are very specific of what music they would play, okay? The song has to be sent to radio, okay? For you one to get the song, if the song is being delivered to radio, that's one thing. But it has to be, okay, songs have to be sent to radio. Like the actual copies, what they're allowed to go and play. By the way, the Texas Hold'em song and 16 Carriages, they're explicit lyrics. They just can't play those songs on the air. So the FCC was going to go after them anyway if they did it. So unless the station decided to go and create an edited version for themselves, they're going to wait for the radio edits to come in. Okay, it's simple for them, right? The label's going to just, email them or whatever they're going to do to send a digital download so they can go ahead and put it into their system, automate it, and then drop it in. And the program directors are going to have to find their way to go ahead and just introduce a song because the way they're going to do it. But it has to be delivered to radio first. But people in radio don't understand that. But what we did learn is that Beyonce's song is going to country radio. Okay, it's been serviced to country radio as of Tuesday afternoon. But this is after this Beyonce fan called. Keep that in mind. They called beforehand. And here's what we got. So her two songs were featured in an appearance in the Verizon Super Bowl ad. And country radio was appearing to be hesitant to add the song to the airways. But there's a large volume of fan requests that are coming to the stations that could change that. And here's what we have. A Twitter username under the name @Jussato, Jussato, sparked a conversation on X. When he claimed to request Texas Hold'em at his local country station, KYKC in Ada, Oklahoma. The response then blew up on the platform as that fans debated whether or not the new tunes belong on country radio. A representative from SCORE, the station's parent company, SCORE, they spoke to Entertainment Weekly and says that Roger Harris was removed and didn't know otherwise, that Beyonce has stepped into the country realm with the release of these new songs. So yeah, Roger Harris, he's out. And then Harris tries to clarify his response, and he says to Entertainment Weekly, up until now, quote, she hasn't been a country artist. So we responded to the email in the same way we would have responded to someone else requesting a Rolling Stones song on a country station. And then KYKC's sister top 40 station already added the song to their system, despite the fact the station will generally wait until the single makes their way into the top 30 on Mediabase. The same representative also revealed that the other problem with the station faced the first few days of the song's release was Sony Music withheld the songs from country radio stations. And I didn't realize this, but this is not the first time she's put out country music. She had a country-laced song called Daddy Lessons from the album Lemonade, which also did not make it right into country radio. Sony Music withheld the songs from country radio. But the radio station is getting flack because they didn't have the song. And, okay, the general manager there, he's dumbfounded. He's not the program director. Okay, the general manager is not going to be paying attention to what music is going on out there, especially he might not have paid attention to the fact that a Beyonce ad came on, might have missed it, who knows. A lot of excuses you can make. But the fact of the matter is that the song was not serviced to country radio, not until Tuesday afternoon, after this comment came out. So Sony Music, what are you doing not sending this out sooner? Why did you wait 3 days? Why are we waiting a couple of days to get the song out to stations so they can play it? You know what I mean? That's part of the thing. If you want it out there, then service it. Not that hard, but they didn't. But this was enough to go and start stirring up the shit. The station then said they got lots of calls coming in, requesting the song be played, and then they decided to go and spin Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages. So I guess when the songs were available now, then they could play it. And Harris goes on to say, quote, we literally just learned about a new song. By the way, this is an out-of-town market. This is not a major market station. It's covering a wide area of 50,000 watts, but this is like a small country station. If I look for KYKC right now as a station, let me just tell you this too, just out of curiosity. Let's see what they are. In terms of the station, okay, if I look and see what they play right now on the station at all, I mean, I don't know what they play. Like, I'm looking right now at what they have on in terms of stations. We don't have anything about what they play on the air necessarily. I'm looking right now at their songs on the playlist right now. Rascal Flatts, These Days just played. Let's see. Old Dominion featuring Megan Moroney. Sorry, I got to say that again. Megan Moroney and Old Dominion. Okay. Then they played a Merle Haggard song called Red Bandana. They played a Mary Moore song, Rich. They played Morgan Wallen and Eric Church. George Strait. This is like a hits and oldies station. All right? But people are upset about it because of what they did. Turnpike Troubadours. They played Carly Pearce and Chris Stapleton. They played Travis Tritt, Troble. These are like songs 90s to now. But everybody's upset. Oh, let's get this station right here. 100.1 KYKC. Let's get them all bent out of shape because they're not playing Beyonce. You know? Okay, move along. Normally we would watch a new song to see how it does on the charts before we added it. But we were targeted in a big campaign to add the song. As soon as we received the file, we did add it to the playlist of our country station. And it's now in their system. We don't know how many times it's going to get played, but like honestly, if people don't want to listen to it in that major of that audience, they're probably not going to listen to it. You know, Billboard shared that Sunday evening through the end of Monday, February 12th, 8 reporters to the country airplay chart for Billboard played Texas Hold'em. KBAY San Francisco was the only station to play it twice, and the song's only gotten a total of 9 early plays at country radio, according to Mediabase. No stations in the charts country charts panel, which includes 150 stations, played 16 carriages in that span. Texas Hold'em received 200 overall format plays. So it means pop radio. 16 carriages got a handful of plays. Neither song getting enough plays to register on the 60 position country airplay chart from Billboard. And this is where country radio, I mean, you want to try to say it's some racism kind of thing. Well, business is business. Okay. This is where the part I come in and always talk about, hey man, when a song becomes viral on TikTok or whatever, or it becomes a song that becomes really popular on streaming, yeah, play it. If you can get it, play it. Don't worry about servicing the radio. You don't need to be reliant upon the labels. Which is why there were some enterprise top 40s radio stations that decided to go and play the song. Okay, then he did it. But then what happens is they come on here and it's like, okay, oh, so everybody's supposed to drop everything and play Beyonce right off the bat. All these country stations are supposed to be doing that. Now, I took this from countrynow.com because they're giving me the radio side of it. Because some of you that's going to listen to this episode want to know what I'm going to be talking about here. I'm trying to explain what's going on right now. If you want radio to change, okay, I'm going to put it like this. So country radio, I'm blaming, okay? They're in the wrong here because they do not keep up with the times. Okay, if Beyonce wants to put out songs, play them. Used to be freeform stations that used to do this kind of thing all the time. If a song came out and it was like, okay, people want to hear it, then audience response, you know, listener demand. Go ahead and play it. But one of those things that people have to realize is that, you know, Beyonce on a country radio station, they're not, and the song doesn't necessarily sound like anything like other country songs. It just stands out. Now, Bo Matthews, he's programming director of Alpha Media's KBAY. The song Texas Hold'em got added to the airways, and the response from listeners has been split. And he told Billboard, quote, I think it's different to hear Beyonce on a country radio station. We're going to play it more and see if the audience likes it, and let them allow to be the decider as to whether or not it continues to be on the playlist. Right. It's one of the biggest celebrities in the world doing a country song, and I think that's exciting for the format. Now, currently in the streaming side, As of Tuesday, Texas Hold'em is on Spotify's Hot Country playlist, number 1 on the iTunes Top 100 Songs chart. 16 Carriages, number 2. But, I mean, that's just because Beyonce fans will just go and load up the streams and get those songs up on iTunes, number 1, number 2. And as we said, Texas Hold'em, the song got service to country radio, and it will go for ads on February 20th. So that means that all the program directors will be getting calls from the record labels, and Sony Music will be one of their people. And what will happen is that they're going to officially say, okay, we want you to at least start playing the song, but we want you to start playing the song heavily beginning February 20th. They want the campaign to get that song going because it's going to go along with their album that's going to be coming out, right? And this is the idea. So radio would come in with the push to help push the album, which is their next album. Beyonce's next album is titled Act 2. She'll be dropping on March 29th. And many fans have anticipated that Act 2 will be a country-themed follow-up to her Renaissance album, which dropped in 2022 as part 1 of a revealed to be a 3-act project. So that's part of it too. But, you know, you're relying on country radio that never plays Beyonce. For what? She's just not part of the format. She's not making songs for the format. And that's part of what they're doing right here. So I can appreciate what they're trying to say right there and why this whole explanation had to be made. But everybody got all caught up on the bandwagon about, oh, look at this. This station in Oklahoma City. A station that's not even the format. It's an adult contemporary. It's an adult country format. Okay? So, like, if there's a top 40 station for country music, this is like the Hot AC format. This is like the soccer mom's version of country music. And not even that, because they're playing songs from the 90s, 80s to now. They bounce around. It's an older format. So you're talking about like for her audience. I mean, Beyonce's audience, you would still think she's a relevant artist. She still plays for a younger format. So if you want to get the song to get crossed over on urban, on country, on pop, you could do that. And, you know, we've seen a lot of times where certain artists will be able to cross over into multiple formats. Totally can do that. But that's going to be tough. You know, I want to figure out, I think Old Town Road might have done that. Because if I'm right, when Lil Nas X came out with Old Town Road, that song, because he brought Billy Ray Cyrus in for the feature on the remix, that song made it to urban, pop, country. And he was able to successfully do that. And he's not even a country artist, but the first time he comes out of the joint, song overwhelmingly becomes popular. 19 weeks at number 1, breaks the original record of the most weeks on the top of the Billboard Hot 100 charts, and did it. But, you know, just because it's Beyonce, let's just drop it in. And that's one of those things where, like, okay, that's going to be tough. Because you're coming in the country and you're not necessarily part of that whole dance. Like, I mean, you know, I don't know if I've ever seen Beyonce come in and, you know, change much. But here's one thing I'm also noticing too. BBC actually puts out a report about this. Let's go and talk about this. What's been going on, it's been very interesting, is that country right now isn't a mainstream. Okay? And more importantly, for some reason in Europe right now, we're getting a lot more music that's being considered country that's getting into Britain right now, and that there's a chance that country can get a much more of a global footprint than it has before. But it's not the normal group of people that you would think it is. Like right now, in the last year, Luke Combs' Fast Car made it into the top 100 of the official chart. Oliver Anthony's Richmond, North of Richmond, also charted. Those were top 20 singles, by the way. Zach Bryan, I Remember Everything with Casey Musgraves, that song is still top 40 right now in the official chart in the UK. It's still charting right now. Which is quite remarkable when you think about it. And one of the other artists that's very popular right now that has the number 1 song in the country in the UK for the last 6 weeks is Noah Kahan with Stick Season. I don't consider him country. He's more of a folk artist. But I guess I don't know if, stations are playing that right now or not, but I mean, maybe he does. If I look at my current media-based list, which would be all of country radio, let's just look at the country charts right now. Okay, at the moment, if I look at their top 50 songs they have right now, I don't see anything here where it shows, we're seeing a pretty normal list on here. Lady A, Tyler Childers, Tim McGraw, Joe Nichols. Look at John Party, Luke Bryan together, Parmalee, Justin Moore, Garth Brooks, Ronnie Don, Chris Young, Jelly Roll. He's gotten very popular too. Oh, Teddy Swims with Lose Control. That's also made quite a bit of run right now over in the UK as well. That's a top 3 song over there, like his top 3 over here. And that's interesting to see that. But yeah, if I'm looking for Noah Kahan, he is not on this list, is he? I am looking right now. No. Noah Kahan is nowhere to be found on this list because he doesn't fit. He's not a country artist. But for whatever reason, BBC, they're misconstruing the idea that it's a country artist. But anyway, we saw the advert from Beyonce. And there are some people that believe that Beyonce's presence can make the country genre accessible to everyone. If it's going to, bridge the gap for those in other countries to listen to country music, I mean, I guess that's good. But, country music is going to be very susceptible to what they want to put as what they consider country music. Now, what's going on is that we're starting to get a little bit of the country bandwagon. Beyonce's announcement comes after Lana Del Rey has confirmed her first country album, Lasso, which has been in the works earlier in February. Now, for some people, they say here in this BBC Newsbeat article, they say that Taylor Swift's 2008 country pop album, Fearless, has been credited for making the genre much more relatable to younger people. And right now on the official country artists album chart, her Fearless Taylor's version album is number 1 on those charts. And one of the things that they talk about here is that, they want to see more female country artists make their way in and break the stereotype. Going along, they say that they talked to the music editor of The Independent, Royce and O'Connor, that Beyonce's music can be a tipping point for country music. Quote, given Beyonce's status as one of the biggest artists on the planet, this could fully engage the UK and country. I guess you could say it's a final frontier. It's probably the one genre that the UK hasn't quite grasped yet. There are plenty of country music fans in the UK, but I think in terms of radio play, it's not something you tend to hear as much. And Royson also feels country music has had issues with being quite insular. And everybody's picking up on the Oklahoma station that reversed the decision to play her songs. But again, this was a targeted attack. Okay? Do you want to go ahead and, get her music to get out there? Yeah. Mention a station doesn't want to play her music. There are plenty of other stations, I guarantee you, that would have played a Beyonce record, and if it was a country record, they would have given it a shot. They all would have all given it a shot. But this particular station, and whoever this person was that decided to go and reach out to this KYKC station in Ada, Oklahoma, they decided to go after them and pick on them. Because they're not even a major market station. Major market station anywhere else, there are plenty of country stations around the country. Even in New York, you could have put it on Nash FM in New York and probably would have gotten a really good start. But they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to change it up. And that's the part everyone's kind of like caught up on. I was like, okay. The song Texas Hold'em, Beyonce talks about hoedowns, dive bars, and rugged whiskey above a twanging banjo played by folk star Rhiannon Giddens. Now, that's one thing we got to be mentioned of. Again, she helps to amplify other artists. We never would have heard about Rhiannon Giddens if not for the song. And she plays great on the record. All right? Definitely adds a different feel to the song, which obviously adds the country twinge to it. So everybody's picked up on the story. And as I said just before, Lil Nas X and his viral country trap fusion song Old Town Road, first of all, originally it was removed from the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart after it topped the chart. and that the chart compilers complained it wasn't country enough despite its banjo instrumentation and lyrical content about horse riding. Now, what's going on now? Oh, and by the way, she's had this issue before, not just with radio stations not playing her song, Daddy Lessons, but the song was also rejected by the Recording Academy and the Country Music Committee for making it ineligible for country Grammys. So Billboard wrote at the time that while Old Town Road incorporates references to country and cowboy imagery, it does not embrace enough elements of today's country music to chart in its current version. Well, that's the one thing. Lil Nas X's Old Town Road paved the way for a song like Texas Hold'em to be brought into the charts. And what they mean when it comes to cowboy imagery and country is like, also, yeah, banjo necessarily is not necessarily an instrument you hear. You'd hear that more in bluegrass, right? That's part of where they come from with it. But that's one of the areas they also talk about as well. So, okay. And everybody picked this up. It's amazing how much everybody all picked it up. And by the way, Gisato actually went by at Bay Legion, right? To go ahead and get people on after and talk about it. And by the way, put out the email that was sent to him, which had the information for the station. Interesting. And if I wanted to go back and look and see if there's anything else that this person has done before, not a lot of followers, but a lot of people hearing about this. 3.5 million views, 25,000 likes, 5,300 retweets for this particular story. But see, like I said, this particular person, Justin, never heard of him. He has 524 followers. He has less followers than I do on X. But yet, for whatever reason, this was out here and all of a sudden everybody picked up on it. Everybody picked up on it. But I don't know. Some people caught up on it. And obviously, this site is very much a Beyonce stan site. They did that. I was like, wow, that's wild. And then I guess he reposted Beyonce Legion, which I'm not sure if it's also something he owns. Now, Beyonce Legion is the fan site, and they have 465,000 followers. Okay, so I guess this person, he must be running it or must be a part of it. But yeah, he's a Beyonce stan. Okay. Wanted to see what the modus operandi was going on from all that. Now, the stations in her hometown of Houston have been giving it love. So the two country stations in Houston, 93Q and 100.3 The Bull, have been playing her new singles. Music director and DJ Nick Russo debuted 16 Carriages on his show Tuesday evening. Travis Moon, the program manager, confirmed to Axios that he added the singles to the station's rotation. Quote, "To me, it was not that difficult to think about. When I heard it, I was like, holy crap, I can't say it sounds like anything we're playing." Right. Let the audience decide. Now, here's the part we get as where Axios Houston brings in the real focus on what everybody's all caught up on. And the New York Times picked up on this. They talked to Rhodes College professor Charles Hughes. The initial decision by KYKC to not play Beyonce was emblematic of how country radio has systematically excluded artists of color. And after a listener requested one of the songs, we heard about that. Now, they go into the story from Axios about Rihanna Giddens, who played banjo on the Texas Hold'em song, has worked for years to spotlight the ways black artists have shaped the sound of country music. And groups like the Black Opry have celebrated ascending black artists. But despite their work and industry initiatives, mainstream radio success remains elusive for many black country artists, particularly black women. And so there's the part of that everybody's all talking about. Now, Beyonce was born in Houston, raised in the Riverside Terrace, a third ward neighborhood southeast of downtown Houston. Russo goes on to talk about and say that country music right now is all built on genuine authenticity. If that song was an authentic representation of Beyonce's self at that age, I think that's really powerful. Great. But I think everybody's also picking up on this here. Now, I'm not sure what they're going to think about why black artists have not been well represented in country music, or why they never really got that much of a, run for it. But, there are artists that have broken through the mold. But remember, when we think about it, there's a lot of new music that we see out there that for the longest time, right? When I think about it, there have been other artists that have been out here that have done, country, country music wasn't necessarily the choice. I think it's just a matter that it's been white dominated because it is. And, we've had other artists from other areas come in and they also break into place. Freddie Fender was represented the Hispanic community that comes in here and starts making songs, right? But for the most part, it just changes. And I look from a story right now from the Tennessean, 2021. They talk about there were artists that are shaping country music's future. And they mentioned the artists that are on here. Kane Brown, he's mixed, but very popular. 6 number 1 songs on country radio. First 2 albums have gone double platinum and platinum. Jimmy Allen, I just mentioned. First black male artist to launch his career with the number 1 song on country radio in 2018. All right. Allison Russell. And she's done a lot of work in collaboration. And she's originally from Canada as well. And she walks the fine line of soul grooves, jazz temperament, and country folk world building. And there are other artists they put in here, but there are other artists that are trying to perform right now and put themselves out there to be noticed in country music, but it's not like we're not seeing it. It's just that some people are getting a chance to go out there and some they're not. But for the most part, what we're seeing right now is that, country music wasn't the spot. If you're a black musician or a black singer and you want to get yourself noticed, there's always been other formats that have always worked better. Routes when it comes to rhythm and blues or anything's just all soul. I mean, hell, rock has always had a change. I mean, hell, we've had a number of artists that came from, the rock realm that was also a big change where you could see crossover. But I don't know. This story really picked up some steam, and the way they did it was quite impressive, I must say. So Beyonce's fan radio request ignites the country music debate, which is what they wanted to do in the first place. They wanted to be able to get the story out there so that we can go and say, okay, this one station gets called out, and it's fine. Country music, when it comes to Beyonce, yeah, give it a shot. And you can't just blame country radio for this. Music Row in Nashville is very much, old boy system. Let's just call it like that. They have who they want to put out there for artists. So if you want to go and complain to anybody, don't complain to the radio stations. Complain with Music Row. Music Row in Nashville, that's the way they do their things. All right? So if there's anybody that has issues with, barring or oppressing musicians of color, go talk to Music Row. The radio stations, they're just going on with what Music Row says because they got to do that. They're at the abeyance of what Music Row tells them to play, of what they're allowed to play. All right? So KY and KC probably getting, the worst kind of, a point here about what they're getting talked about. By the way, Roger Harris, he's been the station manager for 48 years. This guy doesn't even worry about this kind of stuff. This was on purpose, a station like this. And the groundswell of complaints and criticism towards the station, everybody went ahead and got after it. And by the way, Harris, as we said already, the station didn't even have a copy of the record. Okay? But in between fielding calls and emails from angry Beyonce fans, according to the New York Times, by the way, Harris said the station scrambled to procure a high-quality version of Texas Hold'em, which DJs played 3 times in Tuesday night's rotation. Okay. But part of it is, all right, this particular fan group, they got a lot of views about this and got this station to get a call up on it. But now the Beyonce Legion here. Question is, why did you pick that station out? Plenty of other country stations to go after. Why was it Ada, Oklahoma, of all places, fringe of Oklahoma City? Why is this station in particular was the easiest scapegoat to get this publicity stunt going? I guess. Because you caused one radio station, you bullied them into playing it because of what they're doing right now. They're getting bullied. And all these other stations, the ones that are going to play it, like the two stations in Houston that are Beyonce's hometown, they're playing it because, yeah, interesting. Russo right there, he actually was wrong. Oh, Nick Russo, yeah, I've been the same way. If I was running a country station, I would have put it just out of novelty because of the fact that, yeah, Beyonce and a country music record. Okay, let's go. Let's play it. Let's see what the people think about it. Again, listeners were split. Your traditional country music listeners, why is Beyonce coming into this space? It's not her space, this and that. They didn't like the song, whatever it could be. But that's part of the thing that's going on here too. But you'd think that this would have already gone through, right? Because Lil Nas X brought this controversy in 2019, and we heard about this debate before, right? What constitutes country music and how race affects the conversation. So 5 years later, we've moved nowhere. Is that what it is? We've moved nowhere. Okay, well, it's what they're going to do and what they're going to do and try to push out and make everything go and get pushed. Radio Tip Sheet Country Insider reports that with a handful of reporting country stations playing the song once on Monday, stations were taken by surprise by the song's release Sunday night, and there was no push from Sony to push them to play it when the work week started the following day, as I would normally expect from a major release. That doesn't mean they wouldn't eventually. It's not the first time a newsmaking country music song has made an immediate big splash on radio after making headlines. Correct. It's those kind of things that happen here, but everybody got all caught up and upset. Bent out of shape. Okay. All right. I got one other story that's major I need to bring up on the program tonight. I'm going to go and focus on it right now, but I want to give it a whole lot of time, but it's enough to warrant a second headline. Audacy, and this is the part I'm going to talk about. Now, for those that are listening to this story about Audacy getting a new shareholder, I'm not worried about the whole political part. I already had somebody ask me about that already on the side, and I just said to myself, like, listen, I don't see this company here, right? Soros Fund Management. Yes, the owners, George Soros and Alexander Soros, right? Father and son. They have now are going to work with Audacy to exit their bankruptcy and go out of it. But this is the whole thing. Is like, for me, Audacy's finding a bailout after the bankruptcy to stay afloat. But people are obviously afraid from a political standpoint because of all the polarizing comments that have been made by George Soros. Will he be changing the stations, and will the programming be changed into something, radical change to what they could be? So here's what it is. Soros Fund Management is from Deadline.com. They're said to become the biggest shareholder of Audacy, the station owner and podcast company that filed for bankruptcy in January. We talked about it extensively on the program. So as we talked about, Audacy went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy with a $1.9 billion in debt. Bankruptcy was prepackaged and has already lined up support for lenders. A court hearing is scheduled for February 20th. So in a couple of days, we'll find out what happens to the full ending of the bankruptcy. We'll talk about it next week. Documents have filed a bankruptcy report, and the Southern District of Texas show that billionaire investor George Soros' Soros Fund Management had acquired about $415 million of Audacy's first lien debt, which will make this Soros Fund Management the biggest shareholder of the broadcaster when it emerges from bankruptcy. So the filing put Soros' holding at close to $280 million in term loans and $135 million revolving credit facility. Soros Fund Management acting like a private fund, hedge fund. I just think they're going to do like everybody else. It's like what Bain Capital was, right? To iHeartRadio or to Clear Channel. They're going to just tear these companies apart, tear the stations apart. All that's going to go on. They're going to take this company. They're not going to build it up. They're going to treat it like a equity group, private equity. That's what they're doing. Audacy spokesperson in Deadline spoke about this, quote, the decision by existing and new debt holders to become equity holders represents a significant vote of confidence in our company and the future of the radio and audio business. We expect to emerge from our restructuring process with a strong capital structure and well-positioned to capitalize on our strategic transformation into a scaled leading multi-platform audio content entertainment company. We intend to continue running our business, executing our strategy and delivering for our customers or our listeners and advertisers as we always do. So yeah, they decided to go this route. And by the way, Soros Fund Management, not the first time they're going into media. They also most recently were part of a group of debt holders that took Vice Media out of bankruptcy. But I don't know where Vice Media has gone since. That change has come into play. Quite interesting. Look, I can understand the thought process that saying, will the political talk stations that Audacy runs, will they decide to go ahead and change them all out and become something more? I mean, we've already heard about this before anyway, because there was a group of Spanish radio stations that also got changed over, right? Because of what they're doing. So let's just go for the fact of, okay, let's look at what they have for talk stations in general. News talk stations right now, they have 2 news radio sources in New York. They actually have the top 4 news radio sources in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I don't think they're going to do too much in terms of changing the content on those stations for what they're going to do based on what people are going to be thinking that these stations are going to turn into. Among other stations they have conservative talk radio stations in Philadelphia, Buffalo, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Kansas City. Let's see here. And there's other stations that are out here that have also been going out and they've had, but they mostly have like news talk stations and news radio instead of doing news talk, because of the fact that, with their stations that they have, they're not, they don't have a lot of programming that they service on these stations. Okay, so like the thought process of taking these stations and moving them over and just changing to somebody else, I don't know if this is going to do too much. Because I believe that's what we learned about as well. It was a Soros-funded radio company that took over a group of Spanish radio stations. Right? And and I forget which company it was that they already picked that up from. And that's right, it was. Okay. There were 18 Hispanic radio stations across 10 different markets that Soros and his company picked up. Right? And the company that he picked up at that time, this is July of last year, it was a group called the Latino Media Network that decided to pick up stations that were previously owned. Was it the Univision stations? That's right. I think it was. And here's what happened. Okay. Same thing happened as before. 18 Hispanic radio stations, including Radio Mambi in Miami, were picked up by Lake Star Finance and a $60 million deal. And the investment group of Lake Star Finance is affiliated with Soros Fund Management. So again, we know all about that. There's the whole deal here once again. Soros Fund Management is in the radio business now. They want to go ahead and change things up. Okay. So they decided to go and do so. In other radio news, I'll bring up this up right now. SiriusXM is cutting 160 jobs amid push to become more efficient and agile. What about all that how Howard Stern money that's supposed to be keeping these stations up? 3% of the workforce, and SiriusXM is going to be reorganized to promote future subscriber growth. They're making cuts. That's a big deal. And by the way, this is also after they lost 94,000 satellite radio and 109,000 Pandora subscriptions. And that led to them cutting out 475 people, right? Or 8% of the workforce. So they're starting to cut down more. That's not good either. So we're seeing all this change, and it's like, oh boy, that's not good. All right. We'll see how it all works out, and everybody's going to get caught up on it. And, I don't know what I feel about it, but SiriusXM, hey, decided to go and do the same thing going once again, it is what it is. That's the show for tonight. Thanks for listening in, finding the show as you always do. I really appreciate all of you that catch this program on a regular basis. KingofPodcasts.com, of course. That's where you find all my content, including all the newest episodes of this program and all the other ones that I do. The Resigas podcast, right? I also do The Prey the Debaucherous, new episodes regularly here on the network, the King of Podcasts radio network. And you can find all my social media, KingofPodcasts.com. Love to get your thoughts here about the whole Beyonce country story. If you want, please feel free to go ahead and add some comments here on the YouTube channel at King of Podcasts. If you're listening here, thanks for finding it. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next week, remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.